going on? How y'all doing? You are now tuned into the Spoon Fed Podcast. My name is Spoon, also known as Spoon the World, short for ST Dub, your humble host. And we are here today to talk about certain things, and the Spoon Fed Podcast is pretty much based on feeding people and feeding the public with information they need to get through their daily lives. That's why formerly I was named Spoon. You mean to spoon feed, pretty much. Information, whatever you need. But today's topic is pretty much courage versus cowardice. Before we get into the topic, we're going to take a tribute to our sponsors, which is Splash Clothing. Splash means some people love and some hate. We got the Splash Dad hat, and we got the Splash Love and Hate tee. As you see, this is unisex, and it comes in all sizes, females, males, you name it. Now, let's get down to business. Courage versus cowardice. In today's world, you understand, and it's pretty much understood, that people nowadays lack the heart, the attitude, and the courage to speak up or actually show up when they need to. And what we're doing now, especially with this podcast today, with this episode, is to explain certain things in people's character that need to be pinpointed on, even in ourselves, so we could do better. Meaning that we might do certain things that we think is okay, but technically it's not. And we're just shedding light on it. And what I'm going to show you today is different types of cowardice, because we already understand what courage is. Courage is a whole... It takes pretty much your heart, mind, and soul to do something that's out of the ordinary, to stand up to oppression, problems, or any type of roadblock in your life. So, let's get down to business. There's 5 different categories of cowardice, and I'm going to break them down to you. The first one is the silent coward. The silent coward will see something, hear something, and it doesn't necessarily that you have to report it, but if you know a person and if you understand the situation, and say if you have a family, a friend, or a loved one, and they know what the situation is, and they're not trying to tell you anything about what you need to know, that is a silent coward. Meaning that they don't want any backlash, they don't want you to question or actually dig deep into the situation that they're talking about, so they remain silent on problems or your turmoil or something that can help you become a better person. And that happens a good amount, because a lot of people say, you know what, it ain't me, I ain't gonna get involved. But that's, especially friends and family do that, but that's evidence of a coward, unfortunately. The avoidance coward, number 2, is pretty much somewhat like the first, but is this person is staying away. They don't want any type of conflict. They don't even want the light to be shined on them when they know something, or if they could help a situation. Pretty much if they know something is going down behind your back, they're not going to say nothing. They're like, you know what, he's going to be all right, or she's going to be all right. They're going to deal with it when they understand it. But you could tell them, but you're trying to stay away from it because you're trying to avoid any type of confrontation. That is a coward way of thinking. Because just if the roles were reversed and you had a friend, family, or somebody that's close to you that knew something was going on behind your back and they didn't tell you, you're going to look at them like, how come you didn't tell me? And then this probably happened to y'all before. You said, yo, how come you didn't tell me this was going? Oh, I thought you knew. Oh, I didn't want to get involved. Sounds familiar? That's what you call an avoidance coward. Could be somebody that loves you, whatever, but they don't have your best interest. This is why I'm pointing out these certain facts, because a lot of people don't have your best interest. They just love the fact of you, but they don't want to increase your worth or increase your value or help you grow. And that's another topic, but it has a piece to do with courage versus cowardice. A person that's going to speak up no matter what, like, hey, I feel that you need to do this, da 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 da. You can hear them out. Not necessarily they have to you don't have to listen to everything they're saying, but at least give them that respect that they told you, like, hey, they're looking out for your best interest. The third one, vice coward. We all came up with one of these before, and I'm going to break it down in the story too. A vice coward is pretty much a person that uses your vices against you by talking about you. Let me break it down. But say if you smoke, drink, party, whatever you do in your personal leisure time, this person is going to tell other people what you're doing that might not agree with you doing, but quite frankly, it's none of their business. The reason why that person does that, so they can make themselves look better. And say, hey, you don't want to deal with this person over here. He smokes reefer, he smokes marijuana, he drinks, he gets drunk. That's none of their business. Everybody has their own vices. Everybody have their own problems. But the ones that point out your problems instead of looking within says a lot. So that's a vice coward. And we all came across with that. It could be somebody in your family, jealousy, friend, people at work, you name it. You could everything that I'm telling you, you could actually sit back and think of situations that happen to you that sounds familiar to what I'm telling you. Number 4, kind of popular when it comes to weak people, is the entourage coward. The entourage coward, let me give you an example. But say you at work and there's one person that doesn't like you, whether it's a he or she, doesn't matter the sex, but they know they don't have the heart to deal with you, because usually the entourage coward has a low self-esteem, lacks confidence, and they're going up against a person who has character, who has confidence, who's strong-willed, and don't put up with BS. So the entourage coward is going to go to so many different people in a group setting and talk about you and say bad things about you and throw just anything to let it stick. It could be true or not true, and they be like, oh, this person did this to me, da 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 da, and they will throw any allegation out there about you, whether it's true or false, so it can stick. So a group of people will not want to talk to you or be around you, which it shouldn't even matter anyway. But to that entourage coward, they need that. That makes them feel good to have numbers, power in numbers against you. And I know y'all probably deal with that going up the ladder, whether you at work, school, any walk day of life, at the gym. It could be anywhere. This is sort of sounding like a psychology class, but I don't have no psychology major. This is just real life events that we all go through that we just scratch our head like, why is this person doing that? But once you break down the layers of what people do and their character, it explains a whole lot. And you'd be like, wow, it makes sense. Because when you get down to the main base of what somebody's doing, and then you realize what they're doing is pretty much off of fear and insecurities. But if you're strong-willed, none of that matters. But what we're doing is identifying what's going on. And last but not least, which is very common, is called the pressure coward. And don't take this the wrong way, because this is very common. Even a lot of people would be like, wait a minute, I'm not a coward. You're not a coward. This is just characteristics that we all need to check. And I'm gonna give you an example. You ever heard of somebody that said, you know what, I'll never do that. Or I would never submit to a mandate or do this. Just give me an example if you know what I'm talking about. Then all of a sudden, like a week later or months down the line, they switch their mind like, well, you know what, I had to, I had this, I'm not really blaming y'all, especially when it comes to family and a job and money and coercion. We're going to get to all that later in another topic or another podcast episode, but that's what you call a pressure coward. Meaning they will come and submit to pressure when they add pressure to their livelihood, their bank accounts, their pockets. They will just, you know what? They'll talk a good game, but when it comes down to it, they playing. They're like, nah, you know what? I had to switch up. And don't take it personal, especially what's going on in the world today. You already know what I'm talking about with mandates and stuff like that. People will succumb, and I'm not really blaming y'all because y'all got family to look after. It's just these are certain characteristics that people need to pay attention to and really focus on. Because remember, as a man or woman, the strongest thing you have is your word. And if you break that, who are you as a person? I'm not saying you don't backtrack sometimes. We all live through contradictions, but if you are grounded in something, you better stick to it. Because remember, especially if you have kids pay attention to what you do. So if you don't take that and keep that in the back of your mind, like, yo, if people are watching me, like, even when you think people are not watching, they're watching and listening. So that's why I stick to the code on what I say when I say it. And you got to be able to stand alone. One thing about being courageous versus cowardice: courage takes willpower, it takes strength, it takes heart, it takes focus, and it takes a lot of testicular fortitude and gall to say, hey, I can stand alone. And in today's world, that's very rare, because people want to blend in. People are content with being with people and being with groups. They want to be accepted. Technically, we all want to be accepted, but at what cost? You have to have the courage. You have to have the mindset. You have to have the complete focus to stand alone. Because guess what? When it comes down to ideas, revolutions, change, it takes one person to have a different mindset to make a move that can change the world. And to double down on that, look at our fingerprints. All of us have different fingerprints. So, what does that tell you? We are uniquely made. Now, one fingerprint is the same. So, that's with our soul and that's with our voices. If you have a voice, you should project it, because your voice, your actions can change the world for the better or worse, depending on how your mind state is and how strong-willed you are to make change. A lot of people are not willing to do that. They just want to blend in and say, you know what, I'm going to stay below the radar because it's more comfortable for them. And that's why successful people are successful. They have the courage to say, you know what, fuck it. I'm not following this routine. I'm going to do me. And ask yourself this, a quote by the late, great Nipsey Hussle. Would you rather be at peace with yourself and war with the world, or at war with yourself and have peace with the world? Me? If you have courage, you want to be at peace with yourself, because guess what? When you wake up every day, you're going to be with yourself in your own thoughts and your own mind. And you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I'm proud of who I am. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people can't do that. And that's why certain people wake up miserable and upset with themselves, because they made the choices to be subservient and not be their true character, who they was meant to be. And that's what makes the world heartless, or in today's society, dog eat dog. They're out to get what they need, and that's it. There's still some good people out there because they have the courage to do so. So my question is, do you have the courage to do better within yourself? Thank you for listening. Check out podcasts. The Spoon-Fed Podcast will be here periodically, at least once a week, or at least a couple times a week. We're going to try to push this message as much as possible, because we are here to help the masses in everyday life. Even myself, I can learn from y'all. So like, comment, subscribe, and you'll see what's going on, because we got our sponsors and we got Positive Ingenuity coming as well with some good information. So stay tuned. It's your host, Spoon. Stay dangerous.